Alam ko na. You may occupy the front seat. May mga if you come seats in front, please.
Oh, hindi dyan. Hindi dyan. Yan, kayo unang ano. Kayo unang tatanong. Okay, cheers, cheers. Okay, okay. You. Cheers, cheers. Kasi atak-atak ko rin kayo. You can get that. FB Live na. Okay, sir. Now I get it. So, I apologize. I didn't po siya. Yes, kami ni Amber. Mag-friends tayo, okay? You click together.
Okay.
Paras kayo maganda eh. Kayo na yan eh. Black ka
You're
na
so
kayo.
starstruck by
Okay, okay. Okay. Okay na ba? Okay. Sa inyo na yun lahat? Kasya na kayo? Ganyan ka lang.
Doon pa tayo ko sa kabilang side kasi kung nalito.
May chairs po.
Eh, kasi wala.
Sana andito yung mga... Asan yung phone na musculator? Ako yung nagpupunta.
Di yan nasa iyo na yung bio. Okay, naroon sa kanya.
Say hi to my mom. Ayan, ito po.
working here while listening to I think they are serving tomorrow you're so we'll invite you for a lecture class.
What I do is that essentially divided the masters into classes. They divided one of them. So it's
Somewhere for business, somewhere
Yeah. Let me check. So, what's the problem? Kailangan lumabas yung sound sa live stream.
Ay, kasama ako, dami na pupunta.
Kulong mo eh.
Sabay niyo ako mag-book na.
Oo, pero yung titirahan, pumano ka na kay Dean kasi parang dalawa, tatluhan yata yung room niya.
Ikaw yun ba?
Hindi, nasa Quer eh. Na-fix.
Sabay kasama.
Pwede naman kayo mag-book ng ano, kung gusto nyo dalawa kayo. Malapit na kay Dean ang kuhanin nyo.
May kasama si Dean sigurado.
Si attorney lang.
Sino attorney?
Erlinda.
Nakala ko attorney ka, hindi ko hindi ako pupunta.
Hindi si attorney. Ano, gusto nyo, kasi pwede namin kayong i-arrange ng kayong dalawa. Pero doon na malapit na sa venue, hindi, malayo kami. Ito lang ang kailangan gumana para mag-start. Kasi yung mga plate
Sure, good ha? Uy, natutog ka ba?
Sa kasal niya,
Sure, ma'am. Kailan, ma'am?
December 8. December 8. Wala. December. Ah,
Sabihan mo lang, ma'am.
presyong ano lang oh.
Saan lugar?
Marilaw lang. Sagot ko lahat.
Nakanta ko. Sabayan kita ng kanta. Grabe ka naman.
Hindi ko nanalo, hindi ko matalo sa iyo.
Sige, go na, go na.
So, wait lang ha. Oo, hintay natin si Gio. Pwede mong makita sa Facebook o Mesang. Punta ka sa Facebook, CU Official. Kasi right now, nakagaya niya, no? Sa streaming, nakagaya niya. Pwede ko sanang palabasin yung nasa streaming dito, kaso may problem. Yan, yung slide na niya yung naka-ready.
Ingay lang.
Ah, pero nadidinig to. Yan yun, yan yun. Oh, ito yan. Oh, sige. Teka, ha. Tatry ko, ha. Tatry ko. Kasi tinanggal ko yung mga filter niyan, eh. Oh, patutugtog ako. Dinig.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to remind you of your drinks and others on taking items inside this room. Take care of those items so not to spill up on the floor of our MIR. Okay? So you can have it, but please take good care not to spill it on the floor or even on the table.
Yan, nadidinig na yun.
Meron na kayo.
Ang problema, kailangan mapagana nila yun para makita yung slides na. Para makita yung slides niya.
Kapag sinoto, sir, sa kanya muna itututok sa kanya. You haven't visited.
Kaya ba kita? Pero mo nga. Papakita ko, ha. Ayan. Ayan. Nintay pa si Din.
Hindi nga naman siya mahanap eh.
Baka pwede na.
Kasi siya personally kapatid.
Oo nga pala. Ayun. Yan sa'yo. Ito yung, dalawa yun nila lang gumagana ngayon. Kasi dahil hindi natin mabukas yun, hindi, dalawa lang. Ito yun eh, dapat oh. May isang computer na yan yung dapat eh. Nakastack up siya sa ganyan. Nagkakaroon siya bigla. Hindi mo yan pwedeng sa ibang computer, sa ibang laptop Sige. Ay, si Dean lang iniintay. I think so, yeah. Yes, yes. Ilapit mo pa. Pero pag bumanta yung choir, tumugtog siya, yun yung focus mo.
Give us a tour. Pontificia, not pontific. Pontificia. Diba kasi
Ay, dito na po. Kasi mag-host po si...
Pontifical. Pontifical is correct also.
Dapat pala tinanggal yung table. Okay na? Pwede na. Hindi ko na sige.
Pero kung gusto mo tayo,
Dean. Dean. Si TRP na pala. Oh. Si TRP.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to request everyone to please settle down for we are about to start in a few minutes. As we await for the official start of our program, may we request everyone to please take their seats and make sure that their mobile phones or gadgets are in silent mode so that we can give our full attention to this afternoon's academic exchange program.
naka-live stream. Batigin mo muna yung nasa live stream. Saan to sa CEO?
Sa CEU, sa Selams, saka sa YouTube. Kuha mo yung link sa YouTube. Ano po? Punta po kayo sa ano po? Sa YouTube ng CEU. Punta po kayo sa YouTube, tapos Central School of University. Naka-live na po sila. Opo. Na YouTube.
May access ka sa YouTube.
Yan po, sige po. Tapos makikita nyo na yung naka-live stream. Ayan. Ayan po. Yung link. Ayan. Sa yung link. No, pwede makapagod. Normally nasa taas po. May link po. May share po yan pag pinindot niyo po. May arrow po yan sa share. Yan. May nadidinig po ba kayo? Ang sound po.
sa ating mga journalists and musicians.
Writing for the very least. Wala rin yung
It's coming to the main.
sabi ko wala. Hindi mo ulit yung
Kailangan wala siya.
walang sinabi.
Yun din. On the way down. Para magkasa. You know what I did nung last time ko kami? Forward ko talaga siya.
Wala dapat.
Sabi nila 65 lang. Wait.
Hindi na makulit sa taas.
Kala ko sa tatanungin natin. Tanong na siya.
Kasi kapag yung pabasa, ano mga atake ko dito? Si Mama Alice, pinagay sa akin yung
Your? Oh, okay.
Ay, good afternoon. Makalayo sa akin sa Where are you going?
Usually in the morning, once I start,
Kita ka.
Ano no?
I think forget the time also. And they've been scrolling for
Bakit si ma'am?
Kasi dapat nagsasalita ka kasi nakaano tayo.
May problem pa po yung ano eh.
Dapat hindi na dapat magpagka ng-stream ka. Mag-aayos na ka-stream.
Ayan.
Dapat in-stream mo nung ipat-ready na.
Ano po, ah? Ito na lang po.
Hello, Miss. Wala na po bang sweets? Kung ano lang po.
Dito.
Ano po ba?
Yan po. Magkakaroon. Alin po? Yung... Hindi po, yung computer mismo yung nagkakaroon.
Yeah?
Hindi po eh, kasi yung nakadikit po lahat dyan yung... Ay, ito sinabi ko na nga po eh. Pero yung computer niya yung gagamitin, yan po yung nakapresent. Yung system para mailabas ko po ito. Kasi may streamer dun sa computer. Ayan po. Wala silang ayan na. Okay, sige po.
Wait lang daw.
Hinga muna. Hinga muna siya.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to welcome all of you in this remarkable gathering of Erasmus Mundus Project, International Free Public Lecture Series, and Faculty Mobility Exchange Program, a collaborative initiative between Centro Escolar University and the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca. Today's lecture reflects the power of international partnerships in enriching education, broadening perspectives, and strengthening our common pursuit of knowledge. As educators and students, we recognize that every meaningful conversation across cultures helps shape better professionals and more compassionate global citizens. Whether you are here as faculty member, researcher, student, or guest, we hope that today's experience inspires fresh ideas, meaningful dialogue, and lasting connection. To formally begin our program, may I invite Dr. Rosemary I. Saw, the Dean of the School of Accountancy and Management, to lead us in the opening prayer. Please all stand.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with grateful hearts as we begin this International Free Public Lecture Series under the Erasmus Mundus Project. Thank you for bringing together educators, professionals, students, and guests from diverse disciplines and cultures to learn, collaborate, and grow in knowledge. Today, as we explore data visualization for effective presentations, we ask you to bless our distinguished speaker with wisdom, clarity, and confidence as he shares his expertise. Open our minds to new ideas, strengthen our desire for lifelong learning, and inspire us to use knowledge with integrity, creativity, and excellence in service to others. May this gathering deepen our appreciation for international collaboration, academic excellence, and meaningful partnerships that contribute to the betterment of our communities and the society. Guide every participant throughout today's sessions. Grant us attentive minds, respectful hearts, and a spirit of openness as we exchange ideas and learn from one another. We entrust this event to you, to your loving care. May all that we do today bring honor and glory to your name. This we pray in mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saw. As a symbol of friendship between our two institutions and the two nations, let us now honor our countries through the singing of the national anthem of the Philippines and Spain. The anthems will be rendered by the CEU Singers Manila. Thank you. You may now be seated. A university becomes truly global, not merely by crossing borders, but by building bridges. Bridges of scholarship, innovation, and friendship. To deliver the welcome remarks, it is my pleasure to introduce the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs of Centro Escolar University. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Teresa R. Perez.
Nalubat.
Distinguished guests from the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, Dr. Fernando Reyes, our deans, Dr. Rosso of the School of Accountancy and Management, of course, the organizer of this activity, Dr. Rita Lucas, the Dean of the School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music and Social Work, the Dean of the Graduate School, of course, Dr. Francis Yambao. Our program head for the education program is Dean 1. Program heads, other program heads, Mr. J.C. Perez and Dr. Angelito Ayran. We have Julius here, and then of course the faculty members from SAM and SELAMS, our students, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure on behalf of Centro Escolar University to warmly welcome all of you to the Erasmus Mundus Project International.
Pasensya na. What are we using, what speakers are we using?
Ayun po, ma'am.
How come we cannot use our system? Okay, ang system natin.
Check, check.
Ayun.
Ito ba gumagana? Hello?
Pag nawag ko, pag napapagay na ako.
Hello?
Ayan.
Pag ako, wala. Ayaw niya na ako. Okay, so it is my great pleasure on behalf of Central Scholar University to welcome all of you to the Erasmus Mundus Project, International Free Public Lecture Series and Faculty Mobility Exchange Program, this afternoon on data visualization. Today marks another meaningful step in CAU's continuing journey towards internationalization. A journey that is not measured simply by the number of partnerships we establish, but by the quality of relationships we build, the knowledge we share, and the lives we transform through education. We are especially honored to collaborate with Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, one of Spain's distinguished institutions with a rich academic tradition rooted in excellence, human dignity, ethical leadership, and the pursuit of truth. These ideas resonate deeply with the values that have guided Central Scholar University since our founders, Doña Librada Abilino and Doña Carmen de Luna, established this institution over a century ago with a vision of empowering individuals through Ciencia y Virtud. In today's interconnected world, universities are no longer confined by geographical boundaries. Knowledge travels across continents. Cultures enrich one another, and innovation flourishes when people with diverse perspectives come together. This is precisely the spirit of Erasmus Mundus initiative, which is a spirit of collaboration, mobility, mutual learning, and global citizenship. The exchange of faculty, ideas, and research strengthens not only our academic programs, but also our capability to address the complex challenges facing our societies. Whether we speak different languages or come from different cultures, we are united by a common purpose to educate, to discover, and to serve humanity through knowledge. To our faculty members and students, I encourage you to make the most of this opportunity. Listen with curiosity, ask thoughtful questions, build professional friendships, and make sure that the collaboration goes on. Every lecture, every conversation, and every exchange of ideas has the potential to broaden your perspective and inspire new possibilities in teaching, research, and community engagement. This afternoon's lecture on data visualization for effective presentation in business, management, and accounting reminds us that in today's data-driven world, information alone is not enough. The ability to transform complex data into clear, compelling, and meaningful visual stories is an essential skill for educators, researchers, and professionals. It enables us to communicate ideas more effectively, make some decisions, and create greater impact in our respective fields. When in the past, we always say it is assumed. Now we don't assume, we make decisions using available data. As we continue to pursue excellence in higher education, let us remember that internationalization is not merely about crossing borders. It is about opening minds and hearts. It is about appreciating diversity with recognizing our shared aspirations for a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. This collaboration also reflects our commitment to the UN SDGs, particularly quality education and partnerships for the goals. Together, we demonstrate that meaningful partnerships are among the strongest foundation for innovation, inclusive growth, and lasting impact. We realize now that it is very difficult to do things alone. We need to collaborate. As I conclude, allow me to leave you with a simple thought from the Spanish philosopher Jose Ortega y Gasset, who once said, "Tell me to what you pay attention, and I will tell you who you are." May we continue to pay attention to learning, to collaboration, and to one another, because these are the things that shape not only our great universities, but also better human beings. Once again, welcome to Central Scholar University. May today's lecture series inspire meaningful dialogue, deepen our academic partnerships, and open new pathways for collaboration between our institutions. Maraming salamat po. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todas. Good afternoon, everyone.
A todos.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perez, for the inspiring words and steadfast commitment to internationalization and academic excellence. Every successful academic endeavor begins with a clear purpose: to share the rationale behind today's lecture and to acknowledge our distinguished participants. I call on the Dean of the School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music, and Social Work, Dr. Maria Rita D. Lewis.
Thank you, Josie. So my role is to discuss the rationale why we are here, why our guest is here. But as an educator and psychologist, my role is also to ensure that you will listen and that you are awake, alive and enthusiastic. Tama? Tayo kayo, find a partner. Face each other. Stand up. I will say, I cannot say that in Spanish. Stand up, find a partner, face each other. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Alternate. Okay, alternate. Okay. Okay. When I say up, the one below will put the fist up. When you say down, the one on top goes down. Okay? When I say boom, listen. People who get smart, listen well. Listen well. That's the purpose of this activity. So when Dr. Fernando will speak, everybody is ready. When I say up, what will you do? The one below, do it. Up. When I say down, down. Okay. Again. When I say boom, the one beneath will try to catch the fish, and the one on top needs to pull away. Okay? The one beneath It seems like we are ready to start the Okay. Are you ready to listen? Okay, we're very happy, we're full house, but that means you need to be more silent. Let me witness your silence. Okay? But when Dr. Fernando is his first name, when he asks you a question, don't be silent. Okay? So there's a time to be silent and a time to express your ideas. I'm sure we'll have a lot. Okay? So first, let me acknowledge, Dr. Perez already acknowledged the deans and the heads, program heads. I'd like to acknowledge the students. So our lecture series is really multidisciplinary. It's not only for accounting, for business management, for social work. So let me just acknowledge. We organize this together with the graduate school and the School of Accountancy and Management, and of course, Salams. Are you here? Yes. Salams, please stand. Palakpakan nyo naman. Yes. Okay. Buong pamilya namin yan.
Population.
Okay, Salams. So I am the lead of Salams for those exams. So let me now acknowledge the students from SAM. Stand up, please. For SAM, palakpakan niyo sila. Okay, thank you very much. So we will have a wonderful time today. Are there other schools here? Graduate school. Graduate school.
Julius.
Okay, now let me just acknowledge, medyo we had road repair, so nagtatrack talaga, but we have registrants from Philippine Normal University, from PATS, College of Aeronautics, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Inupa, Grade Veritas. So I'm sure they're also coming. I would just like to acknowledge everyone. Okay, so as a background, okay, listen, give your silence and sense. Kung mahirap talaga yung music for the long sense, compact tayo, okay, so this public interdisciplinary lecture series was organized as part of Erasmus Plus movement. The European Commission, they provide funding for different activities and endeavors and research. So 3 years ago, we had a project with the School of Education of CEU, plus 4 other universities, PUP, La Salle Bacolod, University of Northeastern Philippines,
Kasi kailangan
and
yung gumana para marinig. Microphone yung
West
ginagamit.
Visayas State University. And then there were 3 universities in Europe, Bologna, Deusto in Spain, Bologna in Italy, and Groningen University in the Netherlands. So at the end of the 3-year project, we all went to Brussels, Belgium to present our voice. So this time, so CEU is part of those institutions in a way accredited by the European Commission. Nandoon tayo, kaya we can apply actually for grants or we can be partners. So this time, we are partners with the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, where Dr. Fernando Reyes Reina is a professor and researcher. Okay? Hello. Mas malakas ba to? O, pareho na. Ayan. So we are partners with, as I mentioned, UPDS or the Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca. Okay? So, ayan. The partnership aims to strengthen cooperation through faculty and student exchange, research and teaching activities, information sharing, and other mutually beneficial academic initiatives. As one of the outcomes of this collaboration, the University of Dr. Fernando Reyes Reina, I have to say his name in different ways. I tell you something. In Spain, the family name of the mother is at the end. So Reina is the family name of his mom. You get it? But for us, it would be Reina Reyes, right? So sometimes I say Reina Reyes, that's our version. But in Spain, it would be Reyes Reina. Okay? So both words mean queen, king and queen. Yan. So, Dr. Reyes will deliver lectures on behavioral economics and decision making, data visualization, and influencer marketing. Interesting din yun. Are you also attending tomorrow? Fantastic. These sessions are designed to connect theory with practical applications in education, communication, business management, and accounting, while promoting interdisciplinary learning and international academic engagement, no? So we don't only think based, I'm in early childhood ed, but I believe always in learning in different ways, no? And in a more multidisciplinary way. The lecture series also supports the continuing partnership, as we said, between the two institutions. Ito ang exciting dito, including the planned faculty mobility, this time of CEU faculty going to Salamanca in April 2027. Some of you. Ayan. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Parang nagpababay na ako. For supporting this meaningful academic, and this is an international learning initiative. So again, pakiusap ko, let us be silent when we need to be silent, because little whispers is already going to reverberate. We are full house. I know you can do it, and happy learning to everyone. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lucas, for reminding us that education flourishes when institutions work together in pursuit of a common vision. The next part of our program is undoubtedly one of the highlights of this afternoon. Introducing a speaker is both a privilege and a responsibility. It is an opportunity to recognize someone whose work continues to contribute significantly to academic scholarship and international collaboration. To introduce our distinguished lecturer this afternoon, may I invite the Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Francis Michael P. Yambao.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see young people for a change, because usually I'm with the graduate school students. So yes, it is a pleasure and an honor for me to introduce our guest speaker for today. He is an associate professor at the Pontifical University of Salamanca, Spain, where he teaches courses in strategic brand planning, online marketing, human resource management, economics, and business management. He also serves as a researcher with extensive expertise in business strategy, family business, corporate governance, marketing, sustainability, and international business. He earned his PhD in Business Economics from the University of Salamanca, graduating outstanding cum laude with an international doctorate mention following research stays in Austria and Germany. His academic credentials also include master's degrees in business economics research, business management, specializing in marketing and human resources, and a degree in law, specializing in business law, and a diploma in pedagogy for higher education. He is accredited by Spain's ANECA as both Professor Contratado Doctor and Professor at the Universidad Privada. Dr. Reyes-Reina has received numerous international recognitions, including the Best Reviewer Award from the European Academy of Management, and nominations for Best Paper and Best Presentation at leading international conferences and prestigious research grants from the Spanish Ministry of Economics. His scholarly work has been published in high-impact international journals, such as the International Business Review and the Journal of Family Business Strategy, as well as in several academic books. An active participant in the global academic community, Dr. Reyes-Reina has delivered presentations and lectures across Europe through international conferences and the Erasmus Plus program. His passion for research, innovation, and international collaboration continues to contribute significantly to advancing business education and higher education worldwide. Let's give our speaker an Escolarian welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fernando Enrique Reyes-Reina.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Is working? Okay, so hi everyone, thank you for being here. So I prepared a presentation on data visualization, which is a course we regularly give in the international program. Yeah, better? At the Pontifical University of Salamanca. Yeah, I tried to summarize as much as I could to get the ideas and make it as interdisciplinary as possible. But of course, this is not going to be a sort of list of ways to present data. So I'm going to very briefly, but I'm not going to go into fully which charts to use for what. This is not the idea. The idea is to establish effective communication pathways through data. We all use data on a day-to-day basis. And information, as previously stated, is everywhere. Right? The issue nowadays is not the data itself, it's how to use it and to communicate it in a way that's effective, right? That goes toward a goal we might have previously established. Okay, so let's see, this should work. Okay, so I'll give you 5 seconds to look at this graph, right? This first slide. And I'm going to be needing your help, please. So, please, can I ask Dr. Gray, for example? Dr. Gray. What did you first notice? Okay. It started in 2020. Perfect. What jumps to our eyes is 1 year in particular, right? 57.4, right? Yeah, that should jump to our attention. Okay, thank you. But what, on this data, what can we interpret? It's not as important what's here, what the numbers we see, but what's the story behind this, okay? This is Philippine retail payments, right? In percentages of transaction volume made digitally. This is real data, okay? I have drawn your attention to 2024. This is the number that's in a different color. It should pop up, right? It should grab your attention. But there's a story behind this, right? And this is what we are going to try to convey. We're going to try to see which is the most effective way to present this story we want to portray, okay? So, for example, we could have established in the previous slide that there was a story to be told, right? A story that went from, as Dr. Gray told us, 2020 to 2024. But maybe the story, what I wanted to convey your attention to was, when did Philippines cross the halfway point? So when did Philippines reach the 50% mark? That was 2023, right? Somewhere in 2023, they reached that 50%. But I'm focusing on a different aspect. So now 57.4, right, is not only a number, it's not only raw data. It's telling a story about how the evolution of retail went up until 57.4 in 2024, and how 1 year prior it had passed the halfway mark. Okay? This graph can be improved. Yeah? I can, for example, improve and give significance to coloring, but I can also ask 57.4 what? And I've told you already what this denominator was, but I told you 57.4 of the transactions, right? Of the whole volume of transactions, not of the whole value sold, which is a different story, okay? So I'm talking about 57.4 of the transactions, but transactions might be small, right? Transactions might be large. They all add up. So if we're going to speak about value, we should have pinpointed another focus point, and that data would have not been used for it. Okay? So it depends. What am I trying to convey? What's the message I want to give? And this is what we're going to try to focus on. Okay, let's go back a bit and talk about how this is a lifelong, well, a human journey, not only a journey that we've embarked upon since a couple of years ago when data was readily available for everyone. Right? Humankind has always tried to make this visible. Right? The shadow bone. Let me just confirm. The shadow bone is 20,000 years old. Contains a group of notches, you can see, in the bone. They are meant to tell a story. They are meant to relay data. You have also clay Mesopotamian tablet, which was also a way to convey information. And this was the first way to convey information with a meaning that told the story actually, right? Not only the data was represented, but there was a way to protect the data as well, so that only whoever was intended to look at this information could see it. We'll go into this in a few minutes. You have the cholera map. that we'll talk about in a minute. Then you have Minard's map as well of Napoleon's campaign, which we'll talk also in a minute, okay? So we have always faced this program, right? We just have different tools now. There's just more information readily available now. This is not something new, right? And we've always counted on data to tell a story, right? We just use digital tools now, right? Now we use Canva, now we use PowerPoint. The data has always been there. It's always meant to tell a story. It's always meant to preserve a message to someone, right? And how we make this available makes all the difference, right? Okay. I see crowd is young, mostly. So I would guess most of you would relate to this image, right? In a quick show of hands, who here knows Jon Snow? Jon Snow? Yeah, a few. Okay. Okay, Jon Snow is a character in a popular series called Game of Thrones, right? So we're going to talk about Jon Snow. Just not this Jon Snow, not Jon Snow. Right? Dr. Jon Snow. So Dr. Jon Snow was an epidemiologist. He studied epidemics, epidemiologist, a physician in England. And Dr. Jon Snow actually used data available to find out important information. Right? Information during the 19th century cholera outbreak in London. He gathered information and put it in a map, right? Which is this map. And then this map, what he did is he signaled not only the number of deaths in that outbreak, but where they occurred. So he put in a map, each figure you see in black is a death that occurred, right? And as you can see, what Dr. Jon Snow did is he placed all the deaths around more or less one street. And what was the factor that he found out later? What was the hypothesis he built? Is, look, it seems that most deaths occur around here. And what's distinct of this area? There's a water pump there, right? And there's a water pump there, which might mean that that water pump might be causing people to get sick and then die. So he basically gathered data, right? Gathered all the cases, put it in a location, formed a hypothesis, and then proved this, right? To be an important factor. This is data visualization at its finest. So, in a way, dots on a map changed the question that was being asked, right? The question that was being asked was usually, why are people dying? What's making them die? What characteristics of them physically, social characteristics? But he changed the question to, no, location might be the answer, right? So maybe the location is telling us something. Changed the question, placed it through a hypothesis, and then proved it. Okay? Lastly, Minard's map of Napoleon's campaign through Russia. Okay? Minard used a graphing and a form of presenting data which is still marvelous. Right? He simplified a lot of information in one graph. Right? You have here 6 variables that he is conveying. What Minard did is he took Napoleon's troops, placed them in an image, gave them directions, so the graph goes this way, and then it goes back. placed the years in which they were, and gave all of this information just to summarize how Napoleon's troops were diminishing throughout his campaign, right? They started out really strong, they got to Russia, and when they came back, they were really few, right? So we can see 6 different variables here, right? We can see location, we can see direction, we can see time, we can see temperature, because there's a mention of the temperatures here, the degrees. And it's all conveyed on one image, which is what data visualization is meant to do, right? Show us how Napoleon's failed campaign to Russia actually went through, right? What actually happened. I can make a dimension just by following the data. You understand, they started out really strong, and if you just do it with your fingers, you can just see how it goes from being a big military campaign to a very small campaign. Okay? Today, the difficulty is usually not creating this data. The difficulty is drawing attention. Because having more data does not mean having more attention. I have a few lines of information on how many data is created, but I always summarize this with a measurement that says there is more data than stars in the universe. So there's more data than we will ever need in any of our lifetime. The bottleneck to showing what we want to convey, the message we want to convey, is how we get people to actually understand that data. Okay? So this is where we want to take data, right? To tell a story. To tell a story we want to tell. To help us convey this message. Okay? So, as we know, data is not a scarce source of information. It's very large, so attention and comprehension is faster, right? So, attention isn't so fast, right? Your eyes are faster. We think we're very clever. We're actually very predictable. This is something we're going to see in the presentation of tomorrow. But visually presenting data is important, right? Because our eyes travel really fast. And we are enormously overconfident. And we'll get to that as well in tomorrow's presentation, but let's give a small sample of how our eyes react really fast and our attention doesn't, right? So, just a quick show of hands, right? Which orange circle is larger? Who says left? Who says right? Show of hands? They're the same. This is called the Ebbinghaus effect. Of course, context matters. What is expected, right? Then we see that the circle on the right might be smaller. Why? Because the other circles are larger, right? You can see that more clearly here. The circle is the same size. It's just that our perception changes. So charts can also create this feeling, right? This context. The way we frame information can also create this as well. Okay? Of course, axis charts, any chart that we create in reality can moderate our perception of information. Right? And this is what politics know so well. Right? This is why it's such a difficult task to nowadays know what exactly is happening. There's too many data. There seems to be data for everyone, right? So my data says this politician is winning, but his data says they are winning, It's not invented data, it's real data, they're just framing it in a way that's beneficial to them. Okay, so this Ebbinghaus effect, there's a lot of other effects, by the way. Right? But this is one that's really easy to understand, it's really visual, that's why I included it. And gives us an idea of how our perception is selectively imprecise. Okay? This doesn't mean that we're crazy. We're a bit crazy, everyone's a bit crazy. That's how we keep saying. As the Chester Cat says, we're all mad here, right? Has anyone ever done this exercise? I do it with my son, usually. Lay down, see the clouds, and watch the figures in the clouds. I can't be the only crazy person who has done this. I know most of you or some of you have done this as well. Okay? Okay. This is why we do this. Because we love to find patterns. Right? We just naturally do. If you see somewhere we can plug any electronics, sometimes you can see a face there, right? This is because we find a pattern, always, for everything, right? Of course, this doesn't mean we're crazy, we're finding this pattern. Despite, well, this is going a bit into the medical field, but this is finding patterns is this tendency is called this is the extreme of this, and I'm going to simplify it to explain. But the extreme of apophenia is a characteristic that patients with schizophrenia often have. They find patterns where patterns don't exist, and they alter their reality to those patterns they found. No worries, apophenia is perfectly normal. Does not mean we're schizophrenic, we're all schizophrenic, but it just means we're all really human, right? We just love to find patterns. So data should tell these patterns, should indicate what the patterns are, okay? And we should make visible the patterns. And there are three forces that actually shape what you see first. Right? I'll tell you what you saw first here, probably. Right? The big pink circle. Why? Because of hierarchy. Right? Because this is where I wanted to direct your eye to. Okay? Then you found the context. Right? How did I put the context? Because I gave, with color and with a line, a context to a group. This is why you saw that group of dots. Right? And then there's a pattern of the yellow figures that has a line through them that seem to tell a story. Right? So our attention is driven by this. And we should design the data through this. Instruments that highlight this. Okay? So keeping in mind that humans tend to have these natural tendencies is a way of presenting data that works for the story I want to tell. Okay? So the idea is, okay, let's not begin by explaining. Let's begin by looking, right? The illusion we saw of the circles that are the same size, already taught us this method, right? You saw the circles, you thought of the circles, then I revealed the answer, and then you can find use for that. Okay? The use I wanted to find, which is think of data and the way you present data through the limitations we have as humans. Okay? So you don't have to always begin by explaining. And also keep in mind, for example, what do we want to show? Who are we showing it to? Okay? So here we have data on a gym. It says it has 5 months. The active users of the gym in those 5 months, the new users of this gym in those 5 months, and the total workouts that have been completed in this 5 months. Right? What do I want to highlight? Who am I showing the data to? Am I showing it to investors or am I showing it to users? Because depending on who I want to show this data, I'll focus on one thing or another. For example, if I want to present that table to investors, right, I would highlight how the base has increased. I would highlight how the acquisition costs might have changed according to the organic growth. And it's the same data I'm using. However, if I want to show the data to users, I would highlight how the total workouts have increased and how together we can become a more unified team and reach our goals together. So who am I changing? The audience anticipation is important for relying data, right? For preparing data. What do I want to emphasize? What do I want to scale? There are a few things that change, and the framing I'm putting on the data is not automatic. This is what I should think about before preparing data. Any kind of data. Okay, I told you this is not going to be a list of charts and a list of graphs and how to use one or another. Well, I'm going to say 3 or 4 things of how to prepare these charts, okay? Okay, so it's not that we're going to see all the charts, right? Because software now gives us this, right? It helps us to prepare data. We don't have to make a graph for everything because not everything needs a graph. Sometimes we need to think about what story do I want to tell? What message do I want to convey? Okay, so what are we trying to do with a chart, with a graph? What's the idea? Okay, so am I trying to compare data? Okay. If I'm trying to compare data and I'm getting ahead of myself, I could use a bar chart, for example, which might help me more easily see the comparison. In the previous presentation of the Ebbinghaus illusion I showed you, of the dot that's the same size, in the course I usually teach a lot also about the Gestalt principles. Has anyone heard about the Gestalt principles? Using advertisement, yes? Yeah, so the Gestalt principles are basically a prolongation of this Ebbinghaus effect, okay? Our eyes direct us, right? You know, vision is one of the most highly developed skills of a human being. We know this because we needed our eyes to survive. We have needed them to survive for a really long time. So they have evolved, our vision has evolved through time. So if I'm trying to compare, I should think of visually what's the best way to compare. If I want to show change, if I want to show change, perhaps I can use a line chart, like I mentioned in the show before. Okay? If I want to show how to distribute, how to relate, how to explain, well, and I'll show you here in a second. If I want to explain something, maybe a waterfall chart is useful. Right? So let's get into each, okay? In this, A or B, show of hands. Which chart makes progress easier to see? Show of hands, A. B, show of hands, first. Right? So if I want to show progress through time, I would use B. A is an important chart. It it relays information as well, just not in time. So I can use bar charts, even though data visualizers, people specialized in data visualization really hate pie charts. That's a different story. They're useful still. Okay? It depends on what I'm trying to show. Okay, so the appropriate chart is the chart that visually, the encoding that it has visually matches the question I'm making. Okay, so I would like to say we're not going to watch all the charts. I'm going to watch 3 more, right? Histogram shows us when shape matters, for example, right? A average can conceal information. If we're looking here, the grades of 80 students quiz, and I look for the median grade, or I look for the average grade. That maybe doesn't tell me all the information, okay? Because the average grade would be somewhere around 7 for an exam. But here we can see that in reality, 6 and above, which would be a decent enough score, compress the most of the students, right? We have 80 quizzes here, and all but 10 or 11 have a grade above 6. And this conveys that data easily. We see this graph, we understand 6 or more, most. That's about it. If this is what I want to convey, that works for me. Okay? If I want to see how 2 variables interact with one another, right? How the quiz score is impacted by the study hours invested. Maybe I can use a scatter plot. Of course, this is not telling all the relationship, right? Because if there's a physical relationship, that does not mean that's the proven cause. You all might agree that the more hours you put into studying, the better you will have in an exam, the better grade you will get, right? This is more or less what this shows, okay? But there's other variables to it as well, right? So this is a relationship, but it's not the only cause. And this is something we have to take in mind, right? Because ethically, we should convey all the information. So data visualization is not lie with your data. It's tell all the information, tell it all, so it reinforces your point. Okay? But important to tell all the information, of course. Okay? And the waterfall might explain, for example, variance. Here we can see, for example, how a positive and negative components bridge from starting total to the final, okay? So the budget was positive, sales seem to be positive, costs and FX were a bit on the negative side, and then we have another issue that might make it positive for inflation, okay? Building a budget. Okay? So we can use several different graphs. I told you I'll only use 4 because I don't want to make this too technical. So I don't want to give you too much information so that it won't be useful for you. Okay, so let's forget about all these graphs and focus on how we can design for attention, okay? Not for getting applause. Okay, so let's reset and think about the job of the graph that I'm using. Why is it working? What is its job? Okay, and if I use a pie chart, for example, here I have a pie chart that is basically data puke, right? Because it doesn't tell anything. It's just a lot of colors. The percentages are really difficult to see, right? And the differences is difficult to see. It doesn't look coherent particularly, right? So there's a lot of things wrong here. Okay? I could use a redesign and make it and simplify its information, right? But also think of one thing, one usual problem, right? Color. Color should spotlight. If you've seen, and you've probably seen this, right? Using any software, you have a bar chart with different colors, right? There's even a possibility to mix colors accordingly. But why would I mix them if I just want people to look to one place? If I want to draw their attention, right? So color establishes hierarchy, as we saw already. So use it properly. Don't use colors just to make it nicer, just to make the presentation more appealing. Use it to convey a message. Also, it's important to not let color, like used here, tell all the information. Okay? We have to establish some limitations to the usage of data, right? We have to have a starting point that's the same. Right? It's a useful cue, color, but it's also a fragile cue. Okay? So labels, positioning, there's other information we should convey with the data we're presenting, right? The shape of the data, the graph I'm using. Okay, so we have to not only take these advices, but also be sure we're conveying the right message, right? Somewhere. This is a table that has a lot of data. But if I'm not focusing on it, it contains no data at all. Okay? So I could have used color here to highlight one, right? Or maybe I could remove all the other data that doesn't help me to make a decision, and I can keep only the data that allows me to answer the question, that gives me evidence, that gives me emphasis. Everything else I don't need at the moment. I can use later. Okay. We've seen a bit about how data usage is. I'm going to speak very briefly about the story we want to tell. Okay? Here, well, in Salamanca, one thing we always say to students in the Faculty of Communication is, it seems as though communication is a skill that is going to be outdated pretty soon. Most people who don't know about communication, seem to agree that, yeah, AI can do a lot of communication nowadays. However, AI is a tool that is best used by those who know about what they're using it for. So if you know about communication, you'll always be able to use AI better than someone who doesn't know about communication. And that goes for all of the other topics as well, right? In all my classes, I use AI. In all my classes, all my students use AI as well. And I always encourage them, okay, use AI as a tool that helps explain. Use AI as a tool that helps understand. Don't let it think for you. Make it think. Use it and then question it. It doesn't know as much as you think. You can always question it. Of course, you have to be able to question it. And this is knowledge. So data doesn't per se tell you something, right? Data is something that helps a story, but you have to create the story. This is the most important point. Okay? Ask yourself these 3 questions, right? So from the evidence you have, go to the interpretation of that evidence, right? And then create a justified response to that. What am I looking at? Why is this important? Okay, now I understand. What do you want me to do now? This is what we've done with the data I showed you before on the gym memberships, right? What is the data? On the table. Why is this important? So what? Depending on who you are, I can change the message. And after showing that data, I can ask, okay, what now? So invest more, if I'm talking to investors. If I'm talking to users, so come more to the gym. So I have to place a call to action to the story as well. Okay? Think about where we started, right? The first data I showed you. We could have labeled that digital payment transactions, and that didn't tell me anything, right? But I could better label it as how digital payments became a majority in 2023. And that would have conveyed a story. In that way, I would have showed you, okay, starting from 2023, it's more than 50%, okay? Which gives interpretation to the data, which presents a more convincing case. Okay? So, there's a big dispute in data visualization, right? What happens when the story, the anecdotes, and the data I have disagree? Right? Because data seems to tell me something, but the story and the anecdotes, the hypothesis I'm building, seems to be going elsewhere. This happens a lot. We find data that seems to be telling the opposite of what I thought, or of what everyone thinks. And who should win? Data because it's objective? Well, we can think about, and that seems to be the obvious answer, right? Data should be because data is systematic and the anecdotes is individualistic, right? It's subjective, but there's a limitation to data as well, right? This is what Jeff Bezos said about what happens when they disagree. The anecdotes are usually right. There's something wrong with the way we are measuring the data, perhaps. So we shouldn't ignore the data, we should inspect it more meticulously. And systematic anecdotes can show how a metric has moved away, has perhaps drifted away from the experience it was meant to create. But we should inspect how that was collected as well. Okay? So keep in mind the anecdotes always. Right? Don't disregard the anecdotes because it doesn't match the data. Right? So inspect the instruments as well. Okay? Okay. I had a lot of questions passed on to me previously, and one of them, or most of them, I would say rather, were focused on this. Right? How can I keep integrity without manipulation? Okay? Of course, this is an issue, right? If we clarify without integrity, we are manipulating with data. So a better design increases the responsibility, but does not replace it. We should convey all the data, right? So a beautiful chart can be wrong, can be incomplete, can be misleading. So we should always think about how, with all the data, I can convey all the information and direct it towards where I want it to go. Okay? So let's look at, for example, how an increase can look differently, right? How we can manipulate with data. Okay? You see here, these are the same percentages, right? It's just that this one starts at 50%, this one starts at 0. This looks like a dramatic increase. This looks very similar. So, the axis of the starting point can help us emphasize or can help us, in proper use, to lie with data. So, careful, right? We should always convey all the information. Okay? What's other usual problems that you might find? Okay? A causal leap. A causal leap. Not a causal leap. A causal leap. Correlation is not causation, right? And ice cream sales seem to spike when sharks attack. This is a true graph, true data. Why might this be? What is the reason? Is it that sharks can smell ice cream? Is it that sharks hate people who eat ice cream? Why? First, they are correlated. They are related one to another. It is true that the more sales of ice cream, the more sharks attack. That's just called summer. More people eat ice cream in summer, sharks attack more in summer. There are more people in the beach in summer. Sharks attack more people at the beach. There's more than meets the eye. Okay? There's a whole book on correlation is not causation that helps explain. Maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself for the presentation of tomorrow, but I'll tell you another thing. It's quite interesting. Similar to this. The leading country in organ donations. Which country might that be? The country that leads the world in organ donation. China. No, not China. They have the more population. Good guess.
That's what I'm thinking.
Which might it be? Any other guess?
Philippines.
Philippines, no? Spain. No, it's Spain. That's the question, right? So I just gave you a piece of information, so I'm just giving you data. You can look it up. And at least up until a few years ago, Spain was the leading country in organ donation in the world. It is, believe me, it is not because we are very generous with our neighbors and want everyone to be equal. No, I wish it was that. It's not that. The answer is really simple. In Spain, everyone who dies, everyone, is an organ donor. You can opt out of donating. But you are automatically an organ donor. That works the other way around in most countries. Right? You have to opt in to be an organ donor. That makes all the difference. When people die in Spain, it seems that it's more unlikely that people opt out of donating than opting in. This is what data tells us, right? Of course, I could have made a really nice message of how Spanish people are really high concepts in solidarity, but this is not true. Simply not true. This changed exactly when the decision was everyone is an organ donor by law. You have to opt out. Not change. Okay. Another usual mistake, usual way of lying with data, right? Cherry picking information. Yeah, I'll use these 2 years to show how whatever information I want to show has varied, right? Why not show the year before and the year after as well? And maybe there's the trajectory of the change is not as we might think initially, right? Because this clearly shows it's growing. Maybe it's the only year it's growing. So we can't cherry pick information as well. Okay, I'm finishing up now. So the idea that I want you to take away is when relaying data, we should teach how to read charts. Not just receive information. Not just be recipients of the information that's being shown to us. Right? We can show with analytics, with advanced analytics, how charts can convey some information, which charts to use. But if you know how to read charts, you'll know how to create charts that help your story. Right? So this is an active decision skill that we need to train. So what do you see before an explanation? Right? How is this data generating some information? What's the complexity behind it? Right? What's the decision I have to make? Then, of course, how I label this information is also important, right? If I label it just volume, transaction volume for sales, it's a different label to saying by 2023, Philippines reached the 50% point, plus to a majority. That's different. And then I have to ask what's missing. Which data am I not showing? Okay. So what's exaggerated? What is potentially misleading of the information I am showing? And this is useful for all data, in all areas. Okay, so your turn. Right? If you have this data, 20%, 130, then you have to pick one audience. We could come up with multiple questions here, depending on where I'm heading towards with this data. What's the decision question? Which chart family should I use? Which should be the headline message? One ethical caveat that I found, for example, beginning the X in a truncated axis. So one possible answer would be what I showed you at the beginning. Okay? Digital payments became a majority. Maybe this is what I want to talk about. Then I should target this story. I should find information behind this story. Okay? Of course, this is something that we can use in all areas of knowledge. Okay? What is important is, let's think about not what the data, which data we have, because data will, if we just look for it as is intended. Okay? Okay. So, I'm more or less done with this presentation. Just final recommendation. Okay? Data should be visible. Okay? My idea was to return to the first slide, in which we talked about what is useful data. Right? Well, data that's visible is useful data. And we should think about which is the best method to make it visible. There are several aspects regarding this. Of course, not only which chart, which graph should I use, but also which story do I want to tell. And this is what's important. So, what is one change you can make in your next presentation that might help make the decision more visible? This is what you should think about. Okay? Okay. So, thank you for your attention. I'll answer a few questions with me.
Thank you, Dr. Fernando, for the enlightening and thought-provoking lecture that you delivered. I believe many of us now have questions or insights, or you just want to explore new perspectives. So reserve that for the open forum. At this juncture, let us enjoy a brief musical interlude to be rendered to us by the CEU Jazz Band.
Thank you.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our CE Jazz Band. One of the best parts of any lecture is the opportunity to ask questions and to engage in meaningful conversation. And as the saying goes, knowledge grows when it is shared. So this is now your opportunity to ask questions, exchange ideas, and interact with our lecturer this afternoon. To facilitate the discussion, may I invite our moderator, Mr. Roy Ryan Hoson, the head of the accountancy program.
Thank you so much, Sir JC, and thank you so much, Dr. Fernando Reyes, for that very engaging talk about data visualization. So Dr. Reyes taught us that data visualization is not just about presenting all your data, okay? But doing it in a way that will convey the message that you would like to deliver, okay, to your interest or to the users of those data. And I believe that data visualization is very much relevant, okay, to your respective professions. For example, in accountancy and management, our students are expected to work with several financial and non-financial data. And that work was made more complicated with the presence of big data now. Okay. So I am sure that you have a lot to ask, okay, on how to improve your presentations, how to improve your data visualization. So we will now begin with the open forum. So if you have any question with our speaker, you may raise your hand, state your name and your program, And say your question. Okay, ask your question. Okay, we have Dr. Ruel Antonio from the School of Accountants and Management.
Good afternoon, Mr. Reyes. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for giving us educational, informative talk about data visualization. That is really very helpful to future managers, especially our decisions must be based on facts and data. In business administration, I believe that our job is not limited to collecting data, but we have to turn them into clarity, alignment, and action. My question is, how can we balance powerful visuals with not being overconfident and misleading? Thank you.
Thank you. Is working? So, how to balance, that's the difficult task, right? How to balance without being overconfident and without being misleading. Well, overconfidence is, I would say, the biggest problem of our century. It seems as, maybe you have heard of, and I'm getting ahead of myself as well because I will talk a bit about this next lecture, but you have heard about this Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Which is, the Dunning-Kruger effect basically says that those who don't know are sure of what they think, and those who know doubt what they know. This is the problem of our times, right? It seems that the loudest voice is really certain of things. And if someone doubts, you must not know, which intellectually it works the other way around, right? The more you know, the more you doubt. The more you have to learn. The more you know, you have a lot of things to learn. So when presenting data, you have to keep two things in mind. First, you have to keep in mind that if we see all the data and we're interpreting something, we can present it, and if we're transparent in the way we're presenting, we can be overconfident until data comes the other way around, and it's okay. I can express something with data and then have doubts about that data as well. That's no problem. That's how science works. That's how humanity has evolved. The first time someone ever made something similar to penicillin, they were probably very certain it worked until it didn't. And then you have to improve. So data can show what we're meaning to show, and we have to be open to data showing improvements to the data we have. And lastly, how to, so overconfidence is, I would say, when working with data properly, through methods and analysis, you can be confident of data. And you can be confident that that confidence might change as well. And secondly, how to not, basically not lie about the data, but show all the data. Be transparent. This is what we do in academia, right? You make analysis, regressions, you show the data and send it to a journal. And then they say, now use this. And the data seems to fall behind. You have to just find new ways. Right? Be creative in finding new ways to present this. All the best.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Do we have other questions? Yes, ma'am. Kindly state your name and college.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Reyes Reina. My name is Ivy Leslie Tahimik, and I am an alumna of the School of Accountancy and Management, batch 2005. So my question would be, what has been one of your most compelling presentations in your audience perspective, and how did you make it so special? Can you give us some tips how you made it so special and compelling?
Okay. That's a tough question because I have to say that my presentation was good and compelling. I'm not sure if all presentations or which have been most compelling, but I guess I can try to answer like what I think has been the most compelling. Okay, first, I think the most compelling case I've made is one in which I can try to show something and have you accompany me in the process of doing so. Right? This presentation, for example, I'm not sure how compelling it was, how good it was, but I'm sure, because I noticed the reaction of the audience, that at least the Ebbinghaus effect was very compelling. Right? Because you saw an audible, this means, okay, I understand now. This is what you meant. This is where you wanted to go with this. So, I think what's most compelling is I'm not just giving you information. I'm letting you process that yourself. And if you process it yourself and you find truth in what I'm saying, you'll retain that message, and that will be a compelling message.
Dr. Reyes again. I think that we can say that being able to find or to analyze the data yourself will make it more compelling kasi you're the one who's already processing the data yourself with that presentation. So do we have any more questions for Dr. Reyes? Yes, Dr. Adine Lucas.
It's more of a comment also. I realized, Dr. Fernando, that data can be perceived by the left brain, but making it more visible and more meaningful is a right brain thing. What I'm saying is, we can have data, but we can use our creativity to make it more meaningful, although it runs the risk of manipulation, as you mentioned. Because if we're too creative with how we present it, we might be swaying people to see it in a way that we wanted to see it, that may not be that accurate, right? So it's really like, how do you do it so that it's impactful, but that it doesn't go overboard to be manipulative? How do we actually do that? I think it touches the ethical side of how we present it.
Yes, I think it's important to keep in mind that we are binded through an ethical obligation that makes us present precise information. This is why transparency is so important in relaying data. If I'm transparent with data, I might be imprecise with the data, but then you can prove my imprecision. And then I have to be open-minded enough to say, you're right, this is imprecise.
Can I say something to that? The young people, hindi ba the way data is presented in social media, sometimes we get swayed, but actually it's fake news. Or that our way of looking at things is so much affected, especially in politics. So while we know that we present data to make it impactful, we're also worried, we're also careful on how we view data that is presented to us. I think that's also an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Lucas. So, any more questions? Are you raising your hand? Yes? Okay.
I just wanted to ask about, again, sir, can you expound more how an anecdote, again, like what Jeff Bezos said, is sometimes more accurate than a given data? Can you expound more how an anecdote is sometimes more accurate than the data? Thank you.
So the idea behind this, and this is not my idea, you saw it was a quote of Jeff Bezos. Yeah? And he basically said, yeah, we shouldn't overemphasize on data, because data can tell the story I want it to tell as well, right? I can be obsessed with how the data presented, if I'm presenting it in such a way, might tell the story I want it to convey, right? Because it might look clear, right? It might be clear that the decision is this, but perhaps there's other variables in the way I pick this information out that might not be letting me see the whole picture, right? So the stories are important because this is something that happens with, and this is more of an economic issue, I would say. My problem is I always take things to economic issues, right? But it's like when there seems to be correlation, right? And data shows correlation, we always think that that's the answer, and that's not always the answer, right? As we saw sharks in ice cream, right? It's correlated, you can run it. Of course, it will be correlated always, but that's not the whole story. That's the problem, right? So the anecdote is the correct information there, for example.
Thank you again. Any more questions? Yes.
Good afternoon po. I am Gab from the School of Accountancy and Management. And my question is, with AI now able to generate charts automatically, what skills should students continue to develop so that we do not become overly dependent on AI?
Okay, I think you should be open-minded enough to know that AI is a tool, and it's a tool that you can use, but it's also a tool I can use. And I should use it as well. This is something that's less of a discussion now, it's widely accepted, I would say. But in our university, in Salamanca, professors are expected to use and be able to use AI. We are expected actually to teach with the usage of AI. So what we do, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, but there was another question that I received written down that talked about, from a teacher that talked about, okay, how can we incorporate this? And the way to incorporate this, get to know the tool. Get to know the tool, then you'll use it. As I always tell my students, it's okay that you use AI, just know that I'm also using AI. And since I know a lot, because I've studied a lot more about this particular topic, this is why I'm giving you the lecture. I'm not saying about this moment, but in general, what is going to be. Then keep in mind that whatever you ask, I can ask as well. So don't become overly dependent. If you look at it as a tool and know that it can help you, but it's not the only help, then you won't become overly dependent. But I imagine this as something like similar to what mathematics professors had to face when calculators were widely accepted. So it looked like, why am I going to learn math now if a calculator can do that? It's the same principle, right? I can learn how to do it, so I can use the calculator as a tool and then make better and faster calculations. The same with AI. I can learn how to do it so that I can use it, what I need, and then I'll make better decisions, better questions, and then I'll be able to, let's say, use the data.
Thank you. So I think key word there is to use AI as a tool. So as human beings, we have more capability to do higher level thinking, okay, than just doing AI. So yes, we have someone here raising her hand. Yes.
Good afternoon po, Dr. Fernando. I am Alison Bernay from the College of Communication and Media. Our question po is, how was your stay in the Philippines so far?
I find that Filipino hospitality is great. I'm really enjoying the experience.
For the information of the students, Dr. Fernando was able to reach Philippines just yesterday or the other night, Sunday night at 11 p.m. Am I right? So, he still has a lot to learn about the Philippines in the coming days. Okay? So, and are there any more questions? Because I also would like to say some questions about data visualization. So, we know, sir, that in data visualization, sometimes with different audiences, we have to make our presentations also different, even though with the same data. For example, right now, we have a group of students who are coming from a different generation. And then later on, when they go to work, they will be presenting data to someone maybe of different generation, of senior management, of our investors, or and they have different ways of doing things. They have their own way of doing things. Or sometimes, for example, for communication students, they will deal with the public. For education students, they will deal with someone younger. So, how are you going to approach that need for the different types of data presentation with the different audiences?
So that's just part of adapting to the audience, right? So you would have to learn which is the best way to communicate with your audience and what they're most interested in with the data you have. Okay, so something similar to what's happening in general, I would say, with the attention span. So in the Faculty of Communication, a marketing degree, for example, you have to communicate with marketing students, really young students sometimes, and whose attention span is a lot more limited than what we as professors would like. Right? And we have to try to maintain interest. And you have to do it in a way that's authentic as possible, so they can really perceive the interest in topics, right? And this is why more and more there's it's less common, this format of really long lectures, right? Because the attention span wanes. And this is just human behavior, so I would say, look at the audience you have, try to communicate with them in the way that they usually communicate, and in a way that you can connect with them, and that takes work on our behalf as well as presenters, right? So the data we have to interpret who am I presenting it to, and how can I properly communicate with those audiences? Which tools can I use? Like one thing, for example, in making this presentation, this is a presentation on data visualization, and data visualizers, experts in data visualization, absolutely hate PowerPoint. Despise PowerPoint, it's the worst. But I find it's helpful if I can tell a story with it, and if I can communicate with it, incorporating images, incorporating anecdotes, incorporating stories, maybe finding common ground to meron kang reals.
Thank you, sir, and that's like highlighting the importance of knowing your audience also. Okay, so thank you. May gusto ko ba humabol? Take this opportunity to ask questions kasi Dr. Fernando Reyes will be coming home to Spain soon, and you may lose your opportunity to ask questions. Do you have any more questions? Okay, so I think okay na tayo. So with that, sir, on behalf of Centro Escolar University, we would like to express our gratitude for giving your insights and international perspective. And that ends our open forum. I will now pass it to Mr. Jason.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hossa, and thank you, Dr. Fernando, for sharing with us your responses and for your generosity of sharing your knowledge. Because learning is always enriched when curiosity meets expertise. And this afternoon, we have certainly been a testament to that. So as we conclude today's program, let us carry with us not only new knowledge, but also a renewed appreciation about our topic this afternoon, particularly in data presentation, as well as in our international cooperation in higher education. So may today's lecture inspire all of you, all of us, to become more innovative and collaborators and to build a stronger academic partnership that transcend geographical boundaries. So to formally conclude our program this afternoon, may I request everyone to please rise again as we sing the himno ng Pamantasang Sentro Escolar. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the first part of our Erasmus Mundus Project International Free Public Lecture Series and Faculty Mobility Exchange Program. On behalf of the organizing committee, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished administrators, our guest speaker, and our partner from Universidad Pontificia de Salamanca, our faculty members, students, and all who made today's event possible. Before you leave this hall, make sure that you scan the QR code that will be flashed on the screen for the evaluation, and after filling out the evaluation, certificates of participation will be sent to your email. So may we remember that education is not confined within our classroom in our country. Every exchange of ideas, every collaboration and every conversation has the power to transform lives and shape the future. Maraming salamat, muchas gracias, and God bless everyone.
For those who registered, only children. For those who registered, you have the link for the evaluation because that's hyperlinked to your certificate. So you need to click that, answer the eval so you get your certificate. One certificate per lecture because this is a series. So for students who want 4 points for their co-curricular, this is an international activity. So be sure you evaluate. Thank you so much for being with us. See you tomorrow for those who will attend. It's another topic.
You.